Cape Bretoners don't make world history every day, but in the early 20th century, we played a role in the history of communications by becoming the North American end of the first transatlantic radio communications service. This radio link to the Old World was the first in the worldwide wireless network that we take for granted today. The main force behind this accomplishment was a young Italian, Guglielmo Marconi. While establishing the world's first transatlantic service, Marconi built 3 large radio stations in Cape Breton, the first in Glace Bay, the second in Port Morion, and the third in Louisbourg. It was at Table Head in Glace Bay that the first strides were made before the technology developed at other Cape Breton locations, and Marconi's patented communications literally went global and revolutionized how people communicate around the globe. This is my exploration of Marconi's radio towers. Young, elegant, and charming, Marconi was a member of an Italian family closely related to influential members of the British establishment. Today, we would say he was educated at home, probably by the finest teachers only his privilege could afford. To these advantages were added a keen sense of scientific inquiry, enlightened by a spark of genius, and, to top it off, a finely tuned business sense that could close in on an opportunity like a shark to blood in the water. So it was. Late in October 1902, the Royal Italian Navy warship Carlo Alberto arrived in Sydney Harbour, fitted with a bizarre array of copper aerials. Marconi disembarked to a crowd, the scientific sensation of the day. Just a year before, on 12 December 1901, on top of Signal Hill in St. John's, Newfoundland, Marconi had received a Morse code signal from his transmitter in England. In fact, the ride across the Atlantic was an amazing testing ground for his devices, up to a certain point. Cape Breton had rolled out the proverbial red carpet for Marconi upon his arrival and was given guided tours, free land, and a federal grant worth well over $2 million today, so he could build a permanent station. Table Head, a point overlooking the Atlantic Ocean in what is now Glace Bay, was chosen for the proposed transatlantic radio service. Earlier, in March 1902, Marconi put his chief engineer, Richard Vivian, in charge of building the station. What you are looking at now are the remnants of the concrete foundations of the aerial towers and transmitter buildings of the Table Head station left to weather on the edge of North America. 4 huge wooden towers were constructed, 64 meters high, and located at the corners of a 64-meter square. An aerial consisting of 400 copper wires was suspended from the tops of the 4 towers to the transmitter building in the shape of an inverted pyramid. To power the station, Vivian installed a 75-kilowatt alternator, a steam engine, and boilers. The station was built by local labor force that reflected the ethnic diversity and industrial heritage of Cape Breton. In December 1902, a transmission from the Marconi station in Glace Bay became the world's first radio message across the Atlantic from North America. It was a short greeting to the Times newspaper of London. The first short messages took hours to send and had to be repeated many times because reception was extremely variable. It is difficult now to conceive of the impact such an event had. Cape Breton was a vital location for Marconi's work for many years after this breakthrough. The transatlantic stations took turns transmitting messages because a station could not operate its receiving equipment while its transmitter was operating. These concrete foundations are all that remain of the wireless operation room from which the first transatlantic messages were sent that December of 1902. Marconi and his assistants continued their experiments at this site in 1903, but the service was unreliable. More powerful equipment and longer aerials were required to ensure consistent communications across the Atlantic. In 1904, Marconi established a commercial service to transmit nightly news summaries, which ships could incorporate them into their onboard newspapers, had they paid for the subscription. During the winter of 1904-05, the entire Tablehead station, with its towers, wires, and buildings, was dismantled and moved to a site near Port Morion, 9 kilometers away. By June of 1905, the new station had established regular two-way daylight communication with England. The new equipment and aerial system there gave Marconi the results he was seeking, and a regular transatlantic radio telegraph service was finally begun on 17th October 1907 between Clifton, Ireland and Glace Bay. By February of 1908, unlimited public service was launched. Within a few years, all the members of the British Empire were linked by Marconi stations. Marconi began to build high-powered stations on both sides of the Atlantic to communicate with ships at sea in competition with other inventors. When it was affordable, Marconi built dedicated receiving stations in both Cape Breton and Ireland that were far enough from the transmitters to avoid interference from them. This allowed the receivers to operate continuously and messages to be transmitted both ways across the ocean simultaneously in what is called a duplex service. The new receiving stations were at Louisbourg, Nova Scotia, and Letterfrack, Ireland, and the duplex transatlantic service began in 1913. The Louisbourg station was located just past Old Town, close to the shore that is now cut off by the causeway at the fortress of Louisbourg. Sadly, I couldn't find much remaining at my time of visit. All that is there now are some old picnic tables located deep into the overgrown woods of Louisbourg. Nice view of the fortress, though. Buildings were grouped around a driveway, behind which a line of towers supporting the main receiving aerial continued into the woods in roughly the same direction. These buildings included the receiver house, the manager's residence, 2 duplex houses for married staff, a 3-story staff residence called the hotel, a workshop, and a stable. The receiver house was the main operations building, which contained the receiving equipment, the landlines and telegraph room, an office, and some electrical generating equipment. Photographs of the time show a staff of 22 at Louisbourg and a staff of 26 at Marconi Towers. Since the Louisbourg station initially had no means of amplifying incoming signals electronically, it required a gigantic receiving antenna to collect enough energy to operate its detection and recording apparatus. The aerial wire was approximately 1 kilometer long and was supported by 6 towers that were 60-meter steel towers, capped by wooden topmasts, so about 100 meters total. All of these sites are now overgrown by forest and completely abandoned. In the years between the 2 world wars, the Marconi Company held a near monopoly on world wireless communications. To speak the truth, unfortunately, Marconi joined the National Fascist Party in 1923. In 1930, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini appointed him president of the Royal Academy of Italy, which made Marconi a member of the Fascist Grand Council. Not one Jew was allowed to join the Royal Academy during Marconi's tenure. Yet, the commercial as well as scientific success of Marconi's efforts was assured, and is still celebrated. Although his ceaseless search for improvements would eventually lead to the closure of the company's Cape Breton station in 1946. The Marconi National Historic Site of Canada was created by Parks Canada as a tribute to Marconi's vision in the development of radio telecommunications. The museum site is located in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, at Table Head on Timmerman Street. Thank you for watching this episode of Abandoned Cape Breton. Where will I go next on this beautiful island, known for its stunning landscapes and rich history? Do you know of any abandoned sites you'd like to visit with me? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy the work I do, smash the like button and subscribe for updates on the next episode. Join me next time as we embark on a journey to uncover the mysteries hidden within abandoned Cape Breton.